good morning or good evening, Thomas. It is a pleasure to have you once again on the interview. And as I said before, it is an interview which is very informative and relevant, not only for the THI members, but also to the public in Poland. And on behalf of all of the THI members, not only of the THI members in Poland, it is my pleasure today to welcome you to our second interview. Our first interview was in May, and it shared insights into recent events and information regarding different aspects. For example, the Rothschilds and Black Sun, the Cabal, their shadow and inner work, about how to raise the personal frequency and how to keep it steady. Today we will be joined by some colleagues of us, and I try to introduce them today. These are Józef Stadniczenko, and I put you in the front. So, hello, yes. Józef.
Hello, hello.
Thank you.
I'm from Bielsko-Biała.
Thank you very much. And today is joining us also Mariusz Bogaczyk. Hello, Mariusz.
Hello.
Hello.
It is nice to have you too. Thank you. Thank you. So we will start with the first question of Stanisław, maybe, and he would like to pick on one of the subjects or one of the issues that you have mentioned in your last show from the 18th of June. And the subject was quite important to Stanisław because it deals with their, well, more or less the national security, not only of USA, but also of the entire world. And Stanisław said that this is important because, as you said, President Trump, or better said, it's his administration, decided to break the Missile Technology Control Treaty in order to sell high-tech American drones to whomever they want. And this is something important. You also said that Trump withdrew the USA from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty.
Yes.
Another thing, in April this year, White House also destroyed the Open Sky Treaty. And the third and also important aspect is that a new strategic arms reduction treaty will expire this coming January. So we have four different treaties that are at a break, that are not to be prolonged anymore, or to expire. So my question, or Stanisław's question, is like this: so are we going to sell to receive more money? Is this the policy behind it, or is it a sign of a low budget system?
It's a mixture of both. America's in financial trouble, big financial trouble. And if America goes down, because the currency is tied to 146 countries, it means if the dollar collapses, so does the 146 countries. And so America's got a big problem. We warned on the show as far back as 2016 that the country America was under financial assassination. They've had enough. They're going to shut it down and move everything to the east, which is what's been going on for the last 3 decades. You know, with all the major corporations all going east. The Federal Reserve was moving to Beijing. The UN was moving to China. And so the whole financial structure, which has been run by the Western world since 2012, 1912 and 1913 under the 99-year agreement, which expired in 2012, which means the Federal Reserve is actually defunct. It has no license. And so they have a big problem now. And I keep talking on the shows about the Orderboris, where they create one program to do a specific thing, and then they have to create another program which cancels the previous one. And they can't run both side by side. There's a lack of funds throughout the world now, particularly cash. And so America has a big problem because they've been running programs for a long time now to shut down manufacturing, to shut down all kinds of other industries. And we have no skill sets, none. So, you know, we've been talking about the planetary restoration, and America's going to fall short because all the skill sets have been siphoned off into the CIA and Harvard and all the profile companies, Stanford and all that, and they just go into their programs. So now they have a problem because we import too much food. Even though we've got all this land, we import too much food. They've shut the farmers down because they wanted the land to leverage. And so there's this running program of Orderboris. And now the only thing America has left, which the only thing it excels at, is war and military.
Okay.
And so if we're going to export anything, that's the only thing we've got left. So Trump's kind of backed into a corner, although I'm not agreeing with those, discounting those agreements, because that's for the people. We don't want war. The planet's had enough of war, none of which has been valid. Not a single war on this planet has ever been valid. And that's the problem, why he's cancelling some of the treaties. Now, some of the treaties are beneficial to the people that people are not aware of. It's like the transatlantic and trans-Pacific. They were not for the people, that was for the off-world trade.
Okay.
Both of them. So they got cancelled. And people think, oh, it's America fighting China. No, it's not. America's not fighting China. It's the trade agreements, and China is, like every other country, is just a pawn in the game. You know, they use Britain, British Empire, they use the Roman Empire, and the Dutch, which is the hidden empire. You know, and this is how they work. And Israel, which is not really a country, is the latest in the Middle East. And this is how America is the military. So we sell military.
So if you say so, this means that we are short of funds, but who? Because certainly not the companies and certainly not the corporations, because it's, they are just not pulling this money out of the system, but they are parking it.
Well, they know. All they're doing is delaying the inevitable, or can they come up with a separate solution to create a new currency, which will likely be digital, so they can control it. They don't control the money anymore. They control what they have, but they don't control overall. You know, the work we've done, what I've done, along with Kim and the Trust, has shut all the doors off. And so what you're seeing now is the public reaction. And this is what I warned of in the show Clowns in Panic. June last year, it's about a year ago now, where they're talking about with the Bitcoin decentralizing them, and the alt media thinks, great, they're shutting down all the central banks. No, that's what they want. Because the old system cost a ridiculous amount to run. You had military to pay off, governments to pay off, media to pay off, and it just went on and on and on. Well, now, with a shortage of funds, there's only a limited amount because there's no new money being created. There's less of the leveraging that used to go on, where they get a piece of land and leverage it 50 times. They can't do that no more. We've cut all that off. Because all that land is leaned to the trust, and they haven't paid for it. And they don't have enough funds to pay for it.
Pay for it either.
And so what's happening now on a global stage is what I warned of a year ago, is the millionaires are going to get kicked out of the game. Whether you've got 100 million or one, you're going to get kicked out of the game, and it's now a billionaire game. And that's what's happening. The billionaires have made a lot of money. Some of them have earned 30% in the last 2 months. 30%.
Large amount. Yeah.
Whilst the millionaires are dropping like a stone. And that's exactly what I said in Clowns in Panic. That's their version of decentralizing.
Yeah.
That it's narrowing down to a smaller group.
So it's
where they think, so where they control what is left. And this is why they're looting various countries and going in for trying to take the gold in Venezuela.
So it seems like
Ukraine.
So it seems like they are accumulating the money in just couple of hands instead of maybe hundreds of hands.
But this is where the Orderboris comes in again, because without us, they can't sustain that wealth, because it's only going to erode. They can't sustain it. Yeah. So suddenly they're taking away loads of businesses, and unless the trust funds comes out and the people run it, we're going to be short of millions of jobs after this lockdown. They're not going to come back. There's not the funds to kickstart them, you see. There's, it's like a Monopoly game. There's so much money in the Monopoly game. Well, if someone takes that money out of the box, there's less to share around. Well, they're collecting it all. So if you suddenly, to develop their wealth, you need a consumer. But if you've taken away millions of jobs and industries, where is the consumer coming from? It's not. No. And they don't think straight. So they're just collecting for the final demise to keep going as long as possible. They know it's over, because it is over. Yeah. We've shut all the doors. And the only door that's left open to them is to come to us and go, okay, how can we fix this? Okay. They don't know how to fix it. Kim had a conversation with the leader of the Black Sun in Asia, and they're still talking about eliminating 90%. And then she said, and what happens next? And, who's going to fly your planes? Who's going to clean your shoes? Who's going to cook your meals? Yeah. The other elites. That's all that's going to be left with wealth. Well, they're not going to do that. And all that will happen is they'll turn on each other, like the factions have done. When the Illuminati closed down, it went into 5 factions, of which the Rothschilds and the Black Sun were in all 5, so they think they win. Yeah. But they're not winning.
No. So if one could speculate, then it seems, or it appears that eventually we lead into a situation where you would get a digital currency, because this is inevitable.
They think we have ways of stopping that.
Okay.
Not saying anymore.
Okay, thank you.
Zapytać się, Józef ma jakieś pytania.
Other questions, Mariusz or Józef?
Okay, I was just thinking, some months ago started some changes in our bank in Poland. I run some business and I cooperate with few banks, and every 2-3 weeks, bank is informing us that they are changing the system. I was wondering if there is any connection from problems of your banks. We have JP Morgan Bank in Warsaw also. I think 2 years ago they came to Poland, and they have some influence for our central bank, of course. Some changes in the bank work I noticed, because in some previous years, if I made some bank transfers, especially abroad, the money was going through sometimes 6, 7 banks, and each bank took some money from me.
Yeah.
Then and now if I pay, it's direct transfer. So we notice some changes. You think that because of those problems of central banks of America?
Well, the fact that it's now direct is down to the work that Kim and I did. We cut out all the back doors. There was 36,000 back doors into everybody's account. 36,000. And so it's like with the banks, what used to be the central bank would house the funds and then disperse it to the regional banks.
Yes.
In comes JP Morgan. Now, JP Morgan is now the central bank for all credit unions. So every credit union transaction has to go into JP Morgan's account before it goes on. And they will be able to use those funds on their black markets to generate an income before they then transfer it. So then you've got the likes of Citibank. Citibank are the central bank of Africa. You cannot send money to a central bank of Africa. It has to go through Citibank, and they take the cut. And then you've got Wells Fargo, who are running Central and South America. So this is what they're doing now. They're squashing the banks. And so when there's a fake audit, JP Morgan and Citibank and Wells Fargo look like they've got a lot of cash flow, when actually they've got all the other banks' cash flow. And that's what they've been doing. So the fact that now your transactions are going from point A to point B is proof of the work that we've done with the trust. What was the other part of the question? So the credit card is the same issue. It was going through the Federal Reserve. They would take half a percent. The Pentagon was taking a percentage, and a load of others were taking a percentage. This is why the interest rates on the credit card is so high, because before the credit card owner, say it's JP Morgan, takes their fees, the Pentagon, Federal Reserve, and various other organizations are taking a quarter or half a penny off every transaction.
Okay, thank you.
And this is why you see it at some of the gas stations, because of the flow of the prices of gas, or petrol, as you would say over there, is those few pennies of it going up or down can be the difference whether that gas station or petrol station owner makes money on that product. Because there's only fine markets, people are using credit cards, and there's percentage points coming out before they take their cut, and the price of gas swings one way or the other. They've lost on the price of gas, and that's why a lot of gas stations are saying, we'll take cash and you can have 10 cents or whatever the currency is off the vessel, because they're paying that via the credit card.
Okay, thank you. And just one more, I think, rather information. I think it was last year that Central Stock Exchange for Bitcoin was organized in Malta, and the boss became young lady, Polish nationality. She used to work for some German financial corporation, and now she is a boss of this Bitcoin global stock market in Malta.
Yeah, well, that's the Knights of Malta who are running that, who are connected to the P2 Lodge,
yes, of
who
course,
are connected to the CIA and the
yes,
Five
of course,
Eyes and the
Malta is
Vatican.
Malta, yes.
Yeah, yes. So that's why it's there. It won't work. I'll tell you that for nothing.
Yes,
They can carry on doing their plans,
Okay.
You know, they thought they could carry on doing their old banking system. They thought wrong. But if they launch Bitcoin, they'll find out. So
Okay.
go ahead and make my day, as they say.
Yes.
Mariuszu, coś do finansów, masz pytanie?
First of all, I'm sorry I am too late. Hello, Thomas, because I
Hi.
got from my work. So
Well, that's okay.
How is everybody?
Nice to see you.
Nice to see
Thank
you.
you. Okay.
Mariuszu?
2 more questions. May I?
Yes.
Yes.
Fine.
I would like to say, Thomas, that I really love your information from the series From Russia with Love.
Yes.
And I found many interesting things there. But I always remember about that you mentioned a few times that those assets taken from Russia will return to the nation from origin
Yes.
nation. And from 18th century, Poland was divided between Austria, Prussia, and Russia. And Russia took our, in those times, it was more than 60% of Polish territory. So
Yes.
those assets taken from Russia by Rothschilds partly came from Poland.
Every asset has been mapped.
Yes.
We know where it came from. Every
And,
single asset.
And then
including how they think they can get around it, including when they smelt it.
And you mentioned times of Yeltsin. So we actually, in 1989, were again part of the Russian system, so-called communism, socialism. So it was nice that you remember that we are the part of this thing.
Yes, well, Yeltsin was working for the Zionists. You know, it was the Zionists that took over Russia, the Zionists that took over Poland, the Zionists that took over Germany, and the Zionists that took over America and Britain. It's the same group, you know, and unfortunately, you know, things happened to the Jewish people that shouldn't have happened. I'm not a believer of the number because I don't think that fits in any way, shape, or form. But one death is enough, you know, and a lot of that, the inflated figures was to do with taking money from Germany and Poland in reparations, you know. But when you go into it like I have, you'll find it was the Jewish people that were killing the Jewish people. And that's what they're trying to cover up. That's why they're trying to ban people even talking about it. Well, if it's the truth never fears investigation, as they say. So why are they wanting to close it all down? Well, they don't want the hidden hand revealed. Well, we revealed the hidden hand in From Russia with Love. And that's why I'm not too popular in their circles.
Yeah. But a lot of you gave a lot of details which convinced me that you're right. Yes. But I have another one.
Yes.
What about your THI or Kim, your personal economic plans? I'm asking this question because people in our THI group are discussing. Many of them were thinking about Nesara, Gesara, but I think most of our members agreed that it would be wrong if those plans will continue. But many are expecting some gift from somewhere as a minimum income every month, and then they can, you know, do some extra things as a work or not. Some people are discussing maybe will be enough to return our taxes taken, or no more taxes for future, or cancellation of some bad bank loans without provisions, etc., etc. What is your opinion about this area?
Right, okay. Nasara doesn't exist. Jessara, I've no idea where that comes from. There was a program that was linked to Nasara, which was for American farmers only,
Yes.
not across the board. There was a lot that went on in the 1920s when these elites were stealing all the land and they were throwing the farmers off the land, and then they were getting cheap to free grain out of Russia because they controlled it, and then flooding all the markets. Well, the American farmers couldn't sell their grain, you know, because it's the same as the Iraqi oil. The Bush, Netanyahu, Khamenei and Obama are getting, or were getting, free oil out of Iraq. It was getting sent to Venezuela, which is why that became a hotspot, and then on to Houston. And it was the same with the grain in the 1920s after they took over Russia, and they were just flooding it with freer cost to them anyway. So they can just undercut all the other farmers, and just put the farmers out of business. And so the government agreed there should be a fund, which was Nasara, for the farmers, for their losses, because they lost the land and everything. I've actually checked through the 6,500 trust funds that was part of the larger trust before Kim became the trustee, which was rolled into one, because all 6,500 trusts owe money back to the trust. There is no Nasara in it. There is no San Germain in it. There's no Jassara in it. There's global debt facilities that's promoted by Karen Hudis and her World Bank people. And the RV, you know, what is known as currency revaluation. Well, you'll suddenly found that suddenly awful lot less people are talking about that, you know. Of course, we told people on the show what Rothschild said in a call to us. He said, "Oh, the RV was carrots for jackasses." There was no RV. It was never going to happen. Was what they were trying to do is generate income off a small asset that would require something like 3 to 4 planets to balance the asset. You have to balance the asset. You can't just throw money out without balancing the asset. Well, they've sold everything off. You know, they sold all the American people off in 1933. The American people with the collateral for the debt. And now they've run out. So that's where we're at with that. The universal basic income would be a disaster of epic proportions on this planet, and that would be our end. Make no mistake about that. Because to get that, they're going to turn around and say to you, you're going to have to be vaccinated to get it. You're going to have to be chipped to get it. And then they'll roll out the digital. Mm-hmm. It would be an unmitigated disaster, and we would go down all well on steroids with a universal basic income.
Yeah, but people maybe think that maybe Kim will give them this minimum income from the assets every month in the future.
We've ran the scenarios, and if it became a universal basic income, under every scenario, only 5% would work. 5% working is not enough to run this planet. Mm-hmm. And it's walking right into their path, which is the robot world, and humans getting replaced with transhumans and half robot, half man. That is what they want, you see. You know, if they suddenly announce universal basic income and only 5% work, they go, "Well, we can't run this planet with only 5%. You don't want to work. We're going to bring out the robots we already have, And they have built robots, robot armies, robot workers, etc., and it's way more advanced than people realize. They've had it well over a decade, if not more. And so we're then walking into what they want. It's the problem, reaction, solution. They have the solution. They want to go to transhumanism and eliminate 90% of humans, because if you've got robots, why do you need humans? Because they cost money. And so that is why that's suddenly getting pushed. And a lot of people will buy into it because a lot of people are in debt and a lot of people are struggling. But it would be a disaster.
I'm asking this question because now we have government, they won twice because they promised to give people some money, 500 zlotych for each child, which then people discovered that it's not for every child, but many of them is about $120 each month. And people voted for this party, and they have they run our country, and people it's easy to buy people. Yes,
that's the problem. The seducement program, you just throw money at people and they don't think what are the consequences.
Yes,
you know, it's like the $1,200 stimulus check in America. That's essentially buying you off for selling your country out. And not everyone got it. There's less than 50% got it because there's not enough funds to pay it. And so what they did is they took money out of the Social Security, or national insurance, as you would call it over there, and the pension fund. But they can't put that back either. So then they have to bring out another program, and it's the Orderboris again. And this is why they're killing the elderly off, because they can't put the pension money back. So it's one program swallowing another. Now, as for the taxes, the taxes can be completely reformed so that we're paying, everyone is paying a fair tax and a flat rate tax. So it goes across the board. If you spend more, you're paying more in taxes because you are spending more. Not like it is now. You've only got a middle band of people that are paying for the people who are unemployed or on benefits or disabled, because the elites are not paying any taxes. And so you've only got one group of people funding the top end and the bottom end. So when we spent probably 5 or 6 weeks, Kim and I and somebody else, working on the tax for America, is because America gets 0 from income tax, which is actually illegal in America. It was a temporary program issued in 1934, and it's not been peeled back. And all those income tax doesn't go to the American government.
Yeah.
Well, if you take that away, the government's not lost anything, because it was going to the Rothschilds anyway. And then you impose a flat tax somewhere between 10 and 23%. And people go, 23%, that's ridiculous. But then you're paying sales tax and income tax. Well, they're both going away on a flat tax. And we worked it out that America would be self-sufficient within 3 to 5 years with our new tax reform. The whole country would be self-sufficient. So there's no borrowing from the Federal Reserve, because every country is designed to fail and require to borrow somewhere between 15 and 40% of their GDP from the central bank. Well, if the taxes were done correctly, there would be no borrowing. So all those debts in America, 22 trillion, which is rubbish anyway, because that was paid off as part payment of what the Federal Reserve actually owed the trust. So the debt was written off. And this is where the people in general would be better off, because suddenly there's no need for income tax. So there's more money in your paycheck every week.
Yes, of course.
And of course, as you're going through each department of the economic scale, whether it's government, whether it's military, whether it's agencies and all the other subsidiaries, who are all taking cuts out of the fund, well, they're being cut back or stopped now. So there's no need to create that much money, and there's no need to create that much tax, because most of it was going out the back door.
Yes.
Yeah. The Pentagon budget, 50% went out the back door the minute they got it. It's gone on for years. Well, suddenly the Pentagon only needs half the money.
Yeah, because when I'm counting money each month, looks like I didn't buy anything, but I lost 70-80% of my income for payments to state.
Yes. Yes.
Insurance, taxes, banks.
Yeah.
Too much.
Well, yes. Well, in America, it's now gone into May, but you're working from January the 1st until May before you get any pay. Why? Because for 4 months and a bit, you're paying taxes. So it's actually May before you earn your first dollar.
Yeah.
Now in the UK, it's July.
Yes.
So you're working from January to July just to pay the taxes.
Yes.
That's wrong. And all these taxes are to fund all these shell corporations and agency groups and NATO and all the other goons and the subsidiaries of the UN, is to keep that going. That's all it is. And none of it's benefiting the people, so we just take it all away. So suddenly the taxes can be, so on a flat rate, the Rothschilds have to pay the right tax. Jeff Bezos has to pay the right tax, the same as everybody else. Because if they're paying taxes, then there's no debt, is there? That's how it works. Now, as for the debt, was the last piece you mentioned, could that be part of a program? Yes, we have discussed that. So of either debt reduction or wiping it out, depending on the circumstances, or refinancing it to a rate of 1 or 2%.
Okay, understand. Interesting. Yes, thank you.
I know a lot of people say that it's not really debt, and I've got into loads of debt, and I did myself, mainly because of the ex-wife. But I worked and paid. I spent that money, and so I have to pay that back. And yes, we know they cheat the system, but there is a benefit to the self when you pay off your debt. Everyone, when they finish their car payments or they finish the mortgage, feels a lift. And if you keep paying off people who are getting into debt, they'll just go into more debt because they think someone's always going to pay for it. And that's walking down into a nanny state, and it's not taking responsibility.
That's right.
So, if debts need to be paid, some of them will just get wiped out, but some of them will be better with 1 or 2%, where you're actually paying it back, and it has better value.
Yeah. Okej, Tomasz, ponieważ nie samymi pieniędzmi człowiek żyje,
as one does not live just based on money,
mamy innych zaproszonych jeszcze gości.
we try to invite also other guests.
Okej, Tomasz, ponieważ nie samymi pieniędzmi człowiek żyje,
as one does not live just based on money,
Mamy innych zaproszonych jeszcze gości.
We try to invite also other guests.
Jednym z nich jest Dariusz, drugim jest Mariusz, którego już poznałeś.
One of them is Dariusz and the other one is Mariusz, the one whom you already got to know.
Jeżeli chodzi o Dariusza, jest muzykiem.
If one talk about Dariusz, Dariusz is a musician.
And wczoraj był koncert na cześć polskiego dużego komponisty Pendereckiego.
And yesterday he was playing
Nie Pendereckiego, tylko jak on się nazywa?
Nazywał się Penderecki, Krzysztof Penderecki.
Dobrze mówię.
Yesterday Dariusz was taking part in a
W tym koncercie na jego cześć.
in a concert on behalf of the Polish. Well, maybe Dariusz can explain it better than me because I cannot find the right word. But Dariusz, please.
Dariuszu, ale ja chcę zadać najpierw pytanie, jeżeli pozwolisz. A ty to uzupełnisz do Tomasa. Jakie macie plany w ogóle, żeby zakończyć tą cholerną 440 muzykę i wrócić do tej właściwej muzyki? Dariusz, sprecyzuj to lepiej.
Okay, I'll just translate the last question. The last part is like this. It goes like this. When will we have the time where the music which is played at 40 and 440 hertz, when this music will be stopped? Because this might be better explained by Dariusz because he's a musician.
No, I understand where he's going. You have to break the system down. You know, that's Tavistock. Tavistock created the Beatles. They were not natural. They were created. The Rolling Stones, rap, hip hop was all created by Tavistock. And it's all about corrupting the frequencies. You know, we all have, we all are a frequency. Energy is a frequency. And if you're operating in the right frequency, you cannot get disease. And what they want to fulfill the pharmaceutical, which then goes into medical and goes into psychology, psychiatric health, which they control. They want people out of frequency, out of balance. You know, because the people who are out of balance then go into frustration, fear, and anger, which is all a lower vibration, which then keeps you in the astral trap. What we're trying to do with THI is take people out of the astral trap and onto the mental planes, when your natural abilities then kicks in and your frequency chord goes back to source. They've cut it off, you see, and everything is trapped with the lower frequencies, and music is the prime example of that.
Dariuszu?
Okay, first I say about my concert yesterday. It was memory concert because Krzysztof Penderecki died 20th of March this year, and it was also finished last final concert of our season. It was strange because since 12th of March we stopped play anything. We just play through internet some personal concerts, etc. And about frequency, now we have to play 444 sometimes. In England, they have 444. In France, the same. We play still 442. But, for instance, my wife at my home, piano is tuned in 432, like should be. When it's possible with my students, also I propose to change the pitch. I say, if your mother feel not well, your sister, brother, doesn't matter who, just tune the instrument 432 and play scale, nothing more. You don't need any melody. Just play in this pitch and you see what's happened after a very, very short time. So it's not simple if we play in so high pitch. It's very dangerous, and people who are very sensitive feel it every day, and it's not simple to exist, simple like that.
Yeah, this is the problem on a different level between the children that came in after 2000 had extra strands of DNA and more of the junk DNA switched on. And so they're operating at a frequency. And so what they try to do is to dull the frequency, and they created the dis-ease of ADHD. Now, the only problem with a so-called ADHD child is they can't tune to the frequency of the planet. It's much lower in vibration and it feels heavy to them. So then those children are running wild and they're making a lot of noise just to cancel out that lower vibrational frequency. Now, once they get to puberty, they're able to adapt and suddenly their behavior becomes okay. But that's the same with music, is if it's not at the, music can uplift you and can also drop you. And it's the same with children. It's all about the frequency and the code and going through the scales, as you say, which is essentially, there's 7 notes. Why is there 7 notes? Because there's 7 planes and it's the harmonic of each one. And as it gets higher, D, E, F, and G, they're the representatives of the mental planes, the higher frequency. See? Whereas
also, I see people are more aggressive, much more aggressive in they listen any music in high pitch. So every former recordings, I am classic musician, so I say about classic music, which was recorded, I don't know, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, and even at the beginning of former age, they put higher all the black plates for frequency 442. So if somebody has old black plates, can listen in the old pitch, but they changed everything was possible.
Yes, and that all came out of the experiments that the National Zionists were doing, along with the KGB, and they are linked, of the mind control. And then Tavistock, or a division of Tavistock, took the music industry on and corrupted it. The Beatles, Rolling Stones, rap and hip hop all came out of Tavistock, because it's creating a certain, particularly rap and hip hop, it's aggressive, it's talking about violence, it's demeaning people, low vibration, get people to listen to it, those people become low vibration. And that's essentially how it works. But if you go into the higher frequencies have the code of healing. So if you match, it's like the Rife machine, if you match the code of a disease with the frequency, even if you're just playing a note of that frequency, you will delete that disease. It's the same thing. So as you go higher, they're the notes that have healing in, and that's what they don't want. They want us all to be sick so they can control us. That's how it works.
Only what I know that purpose is different. It was organ masters, and they produced the instrument between 412 until 467. But it was not opposite to humanity. It was simply fighting between them to create a special kind of timbre of the instrument, depends of frequency, how I can say, every room is like pipe of the organ.
Yeah.
There's one sound inside. So every churches,
The
you can
churches started
look
that.
at them like one huge pipe. And if they produce the instrument, they decide what pitch use, that the sound will be interesting for the ears. So it is one thing I know that is not opposite to humanity.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's no coincidence that it came out of the churches. They still have that organ. It's harvesting the energy. That's what churches are for. They harvest the energy. A lot of them are built on key points of the ley lines, which are beneficial to us, but it's them harvesting the energy, and the organ plays into it.
And it's very funny because very close to my city is very good organ instrument. This pitch is, like I said, 467. And if organ player is playing, for instance, sonata of Mendelssohn, is flowing so huge good energy through that simply I don't understand how it works. That even in so high pitch, the energy is flowing. I can't listen to this piece in car because it's dangerous. I can.
Yeah. Oh, it has the ability to disrupt the brain rhythm.
Yeah.
And again, this is what they keep doing. They're disrupting us on all levels. The brain frequency, the clock, our own internal clock. They're disrupting that because suddenly supermarkets and shops are open 24 hours a day. Well, that's disrupting your circadian rhythm. And that's what they keep doing, just disrupt, and divide.
So maybe you can answer, if you know, how is that in every composition, if it's good composer, he wrote through feeling some pieces, not from just the brain. Doesn't matter which pitch is using through orchestra, this energy flowing from this bar until this bar, always exactly in the same bars. Doesn't matter of pitch. In old recordings, it's in contemporary recordings. How is that? Why is
Well, obviously, they found a key range that can have sufficient impact without drawing too much attention. Because they're not going to turn it all the way up. It's the totalitarian creep on a different level. They just keep turning it up, let people get used to it, and turn it up a bit more. And it's a bit like the taxes. They'll start off with a small tax, and we're just adding a little bit more, and then just a little bit more, and it just keeps on going. You know, once they start charging you for something. I remember when I was a child in the UK, we had to pay prescription fees, and it was a very small fee. I think it was 10 pence was the initial one, and then it went to 20, and then 40, and then on it goes. Once they start charging, and they always offer it low to just keep people not enough to complain, and then they just roll it out, because then you know they've got you hooked on the drugs, and you have to buy them. You have no option.
That's
Well,
right.
you do, because you have the choice. Don't take it. You know, people who work on themselves can heal themselves. We don't need their poisons and pills. It's lazy man's tech again. In fact, all technology is lazy man's tech. It's like a calculator. We've got one up here. Healing machines, people ask for, these RAN beds. You know, well, why hasn't he got them out? He's been talking about them for the past 5 years. And RAN are one of the billionaire companies who are going to stay in the game till the last. Well, why hasn't he got funding off them? Well, clearly they're not coming out. You know, and it would help some people, but it can't become a permanent fixture, a healing bed, because that's going to make people lazy of not working on themselves, because you can actually heal yourself and heal somebody else across the other side of the planet, or even the other side of the universe.
Correct.
When you tune into your own abilities, you don't need med beds, you don't need calculators. You know, phones are the same. You know, this vessel had telepathy long in the past. Why would you need a phone if you can use telepathy? You know, telepathy currently would be a disaster, because everyone will find out what everyone thinks about them, really. And there'll be fights everywhere. But once you develop a species, that's the natural cause, where everyone's open and transparent, you know, and that's what we have to go back to.
Okej, Tomasz, ponieważ Dariusza wyłączyło jakoś krótko.
Dariusz is back on the line again in a minute, but
Mamy jeszcze następnego. Jest Dariusz z powrotem. Dariuszu, czy masz jeszcze jakieś pytanie? Może, bo chcemy przejść już do Mariusza.
Okay, Mike, another question. I'm sorry, I lost connection.
Okay.
I answered your last question, by the way.
Okay, I don't know if you can answer, but where is source of your huge knowledge about history of our Earth, of hidden connections, about everything you say? Because you say 3.5 hours in your program, and mostly maybe I heard about something, I was not sure, but you say every new things every time. How you know about that?
It's a mixture. Some things I've been researching a long time. Certainly when the internet came out, I was doing 7 hours a day, 6-7 hours a day. So I go right across the gamut of alt media. I started off wanting to learn about UFOs and ETs, because that's a boyhood experiences I had, and then it led into other conspiracies, which turns out is not. At least we have a theory, because they don't. And then it led into the finance and the banking. I got to a point in 2011 where I'd researched virtually right across the genre of the alt media. Most people have a niche. They'll talk about UFOs and ETs. Others will talk about finance and banking. But I retained the knowledge across the board, and then I met people who could help me along the way. Was that a coincidence? No, I don't think so. But also, I have the ability to connect to the information field. So if I need an answer, really need an answer, I can go into the field. Some will call it the Akashic, but you've got to have developed the self to go there. Not everyone can go there, sadly. If they did, things would be a lot easier. And so I'll ask a question, and the current 8A, B, and C all came out of one question that I wanted an answer. And then volumes of information came in. And then, I supplement it with some research from the internet. You're not going to get all the information from the internet, because it's controlled like everything else. And I get led to articles. So I don't research, because the word itself means you already have it. You already have the information, but you're researching for it. And so if the information is already there, it's up to you to tune into it and tap into it. And then I get the downloads of what I need, and then I have to copy it all out and remember it all. Thankfully, I've got a good and a long memory, so it kind of helps. But I do supplement it from time to time from people who've done stuff in the past that has often been overlooked. And what I'm doing is bringing it back to the fore. Because now's the time. When that information first came out, not everyone was ready for it. Not everyone is ready for THI shows, because too many people don't want the truth. They prefer the lie. But eventually, when they're ready, they will find THI. That's why I don't advertise. You have to be ready, you know. And so, a lot of it is certainly from 2013 onwards. I'm going into the information field where the information comes to me rather than me going to it. But then Kim's helped, and a number of other people have helped.
So it is true that people have scared because of knowledge. I don't know why, but it's really true.
Yeah, people are frightened. They're not scared of the knowledge; they're scared of the truth.
Yeah.
That's the problem. People don't like the truth. You know, we had a joke in one of the chats where the female asks, "Does my backside look big in this dress?" And most men are going to go, "No, dear, it's not." Well, the fact that you've asked means you think it is, but they're waiting for the lie, you know. But then I have a wicked sense of humor. So I'll say, well, actually, you look like the back end of a bus, and make a joke out of it. And it gets me a few slaps, but, you know. But actually, that's the example. People are always looking. You know, it's like people wanting likes on a Facebook page. If I get lots of likes, that means people like me. Well, actually, people don't even know you. It's the external gratification, when the real gratification is internal, not external.
Thanks a lot.
Dziękujemy Dariuszowi.
Thank you very much, Dariusz.
Józef mówił o finansach, tu była muzyka.
Joseph was talking about the finance system, Darek was talking about the music,
A teraz przejdziemy do najwyższej półki.
And now we are coming to the highest bar, or the highest level.
Ponieważ znasz już, Tomasie, Mariusza.
As you already got to know Mariusz.
Ponieważ Mariusz nie mówi po angielsku, więc Jolanta musi tłumaczyć.
As Mariusz does not talk in English, I will translate.
Ja może zacznę za Mariusza z pierwszym pytaniem trochę kalibru. Jak długo bawisz się w wędrówki do innych wymiarów, Tomaszu?
And for the first question of Stanisław, how long do you play with your journey into other dimensions or other worlds?
How long have I been doing it?
Yeah.
Since a child, but it increased rapidly over the past, since 2012.
Stanisław said, maybe you can tell us something more.
Please.
On what field? In what field?
W jakim zakresie, czy w jakim polu?
Mariuszu, może to twoja działka, może pomożesz mi w tym zakresie.
Mariusz, it is your field, maybe you help me with that.
Tak, to prawda. Mnie szczególnie ciekawi taka rzecz, czy zdarzyło ci się spotykać jakieś rasy, które istnieją w wyższych wymiarach i czy udało ci się z nimi na przykład w jakiś sposób skomunikować?
The question is, have you managed to communicate with the different races, and did you meet them, and could you communicate with them? Were you able to communicate with them?
Yes, and yes.
Yes. Tak.
Dawaj dalej.
So the next question.
Czy jest ci coś o tym wiadomo, że rasy reptyliańskie niekoniecznie musimy postrzegać jako samo zło na tym świecie? Czy znasz jakiś podgatunek, który jest nam w jakiś sposób przyjazny, może albo nie jest chociażby wrogi?
Is it possible, or do you know that not all reptilian beings or races are certainly bad to us, or do you know any sub race of reptilian beings who are more friendly or more behaving in a different way?
It's kind of difficult to broad sweep. It's like saying everyone in Poland's nice or everyone in Germany's not nice. It's the same right across the board. Same with the different species. You're going to get a nice group and a not nice group. But overall, I have to say, of the many races, most of them have used this vessel and not for good purposes. They may come as saviors, because remember the Draco came as saviors 16,500 years ago, because there was Star Wars going on this planet then. And the Draco says, we'll save you, because we had no technology to defend. We'll save you, and they were all very nice for the first 500 years or so. And people think, these are the gods, these are our saviors. And then the programs kicked in, all hidden behind the scenes. And it's like how the governments work. Well, the governments don't work because the governments don't decide anything, ever. They'll introduce something that appears to look nice. And it's the fishing line technique. You won't see the hook until the end. It's too late. It's like religion. I know some people don't like my stance on religion, but I've presented the evidence, and it's up to people to decide for themselves whether they wish to continue with that. But religion sounds also nice, but then we've all heard of all the crimes that's been committed within the churches, and the changing of the languages. It's all in the scriptures, and it's not been good for us. It's taken the internal to external. It appears to be a nice program, but it's not. The same as spirituality. Spirituality is about the individual. It's not about mass meditations and the collective. It is about you and you only, and your connection to source. So suddenly they're talking mass meditations and mandalas. The mandalas are nice. The mantras are nice. Well, no, we don't understand what the mandalas and mantras are. We assume they are nice because it comes from the East. And this is how they run it. So it's presented as something being useful when it's actually not. Now there is a change since 2013 where more cooperation has taken place, including the main six. Some will call it the unholy six, where they were instructed back in 13 to clear up their mess. And then what usually happens is the blame culture comes out. Well, we didn't do that. That was you. Well, we didn't. No, just fix it. And we have to fix our part as well. You know, you can't just blame all of the world's ills on rogue ETs and 1%, because that's just ridiculous, you know. And we have to fix our part as well. We have to start looking after each other. So the fact that we have 39 species below our feet, and some of them have been here longer than we have in the current epoch, who have not only started working together, but sharing together. And that's what we have to do. And so that's why I launched with the TPC, the cooperative model. It's not just about business, it's psychological, it's social. It can apply in sport, it can apply in government. You can have a cooperative government. We don't need parties. We just need people acting and doing the best for and by the people. So back to the question with the ETs. And so once the peace treaty, you know, the peace treaty was the biggest thing to happen on this planet for thousands of years. Did it get publicized? No, because they want to continue the old game. They gain benefit of still interacting with the rogue ETs, and most of them are rogue. You know, I have a list of which one day I may turn into a show of the 26 species that had interfered here. And what they were doing is seeding their genes. So then they had ownership. Each one was coming in. And so you've got all these nice Pleiadians, as they're saying, and the nice Arcturians. Well, actually, they were not nice in the past either, because they put their seed in. And then we're using it as to say, well, this is part of our planet. So they were all fighting over the real estate. Well, actually, the people are the real estate. That's why it's called human resource. Because we are the resource.
Czy można połączyć spotkanie Rady Uniwersum z tym masowym odlotem obiektów 16 maja tego roku?
On the 16th of May, there was a massive number of objects which were reported to leave the Earth's surface. And the question is, was their meeting of the Universal Council the meeting of the Universal Council has it to do anything with this event?
Yeah, that's around the time. I remember the date they arrived because it was my birthday, and I got hello card, shall we say, because they flew over, numbers of them. And so that was the April 17th. So we've not heard, I don't know from Kim's end, but we've not heard much of what's gone on, apart from that the psychopaths, and they are the few, the psychopaths are not going to step down. Well, we knew that anyway. And they're all thinking it's a test and Marduk's returning. That'll be a no. You know, and so they've taken out Queen L, which is a great disappointment to me. And I have since addressed the council a week last Tuesday, and they have to act. They have to act. You know, that's their problem. That's not our problem. You know, we can only fix a certain amount. We don't have the tools. That's the problem. You know, the biggest issue on this planet is enforcement. We have no enforcement. You know, all these common law people, you know, dotted all over the internet. It's a complete waste of time unless you have something or someone to enforce those laws. And yes, they're all valid and they're all real, but if you've got no enforcement, what point is it? It's same with Kim. You know, as the trustee, she owns the Federal Reserve. Can she go into the Federal Reserve and reclaim the building? No, because she's got no enforcement. But if Kim had enforcement, then every building on the planet can be put back in the trust, because the trust owns it all, because they just leverage it and leaned everything to collect pieces of paper for them to build their mini family empires. Only to find out in 2007 is Marduk cut them all off. It wasn't Kim that cut them off, it was Marduk. He had all the assets, because a piece of paper has no value. It has an ascribed value because somebody says that dollar is worth $1.
That's right.
But if you take that value away, it's a piece of paper. And what are you going to sell a piece of paper for? Because nobody's going to buy it. All you're going to buy is the asset. And M had all the assets. That's why the trust owns virtually everything, including the people on the planet, because they leveraged and leaned everything, every building, every piece of land, every country.
Yeah.
Tomaszu, Tomasz, excuse me, u nas był być Tomaszem. Chodzi o to, że w ostatnich wypowiedziach, powiedzmy, Kimberly i jej grupy, mówi się o 44 dniach i potem nastąpi coś wielkiego. Czy wiesz coś na ten temat?
Stanisław says that in the Polish language, your first name sounds like Tomasz, so he excused for that. And he asks Kimberly and the people of Tank and Dank, they are talking about
44 dnia, czy się coś ważnego wydarzy.
About 44 days, and after those 44 days, there should be happening something
big.
Something big or something special. Do you know anything of that? What this relates to?
Kim has mentioned about the waves coming in. Well, the waves have been coming in since 2002. Is that I would suggest that date is not valid at this point. The problem with dates is you're always going to set yourself up to fail because it has to be right. Because if it's not, you're then losing credibility. You know, I had that with the previous host I was working with, Drake. He used to say 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. Well, 2 weeks came and went and just carried on. You know, and the RV people, tomorrow, 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 for 10 years. Well, it's 13 years now. And I was given a date in April of last year for the best possible range or timing for a change. And it's not July. And so I try to avoid giving dates because if it goes wrong, people are always looking to discount my information because my information is fairly brutal at times on a range of subjects. And it's easier not to listen than to listen. So if you start putting out dates and going wrong, they'll then use that as an excuse to go, see, everything else he says is wrong. And so I don't think it was a good move putting dates out. And had we still been together, I would not have put that date out on our show. Because it's setting yourself up.
Konkretne pytanie od siebie. Ja wiem, że nie zrozumiałeś, my to przetłumaczymy, później się dowiesz odpowiedzi. Czy masz jakieś pytanie jeszcze tego typu do naszego gościa?
Tak, ja chciałbym się odnieść do cywilizacji Sumeru, która, jak wiemy, chyba ma najlepiej udokumentowane i przetłumaczone istnienie kiedyś obcej rasy żyjącej równolegle z Ziemianami.
Poczekaj chwilę, przetłumaczymy.
Mariusz would like to relate his answer, his question to the time of the Sumers, if I pronounce it correctly, and
ta rasa jest najbardziej udokumentowana.
And the race is the best researched or known.
Dalej, Mariuszu?
I
nazywa się ich Anunnaki. I teraz problem polega na tym, że wielu ludzi myśli, że Anunnaki to jest rasa Anunnaki. Natomiast to wiadomo, że to są po prostu określeni jako przybysze. Czy jest ci wiadomo, co to tak naprawdę była za rasa, która była przedstawiona jako postacie ze skrzydłami? I nie mówię, że reptylianie. Jaka jest prawda? Czy jest ci coś wiadomo na ten?
Okay.
The rest of the question sounds like this. Part of we know that some of them were called Anunnaki, and we know that this is not a race, this is just a term used for them who came out of this place, so from outside. And do you know anything about this subject?
The Anunnaki is an umbrella group of 5. It's not one, it's not only reptilian. There's 1 reptile, 1 avian, which are not blue avian, 1 insectoid, and 2 humanoid. And the humanoid ones that are presented as humanoid when actually they're reptilian are some of the ones we saw in Sumer and also in Egypt. It's the same group. You know, you've got Thoth with the avian. Well, that's the Thoth is from the Pleiades, and the Nibiru group. The Nibiru came from the Pleiades, and Thoth fell. He was one of Source's main warriors, like Kim, like Solomon, and a few others who fell. He fell for the seducement. And the reptile and the insectoid, which is the mantid, are the dominant 2 that have kind of goose-stepped around the universe and taken over planets and people. But they play the heavy role. Now, the Anunnaki are the ones that introduced the Hebrew and the religion. The Anunnaki are known as the chosen ones. The Hebrew Jewish people are known as the chosen ones. It's the same people, it's the same program. And all religions stemmed out of the Talmud, which is them. Anyone who's read the Talmud will see how little they think of humans, which then got Christianized into the Torah, and then the Torah then became Christian. Same thing, same program. You just changed the names. And that's what they've done with all the gods, Zeus and Jupiter. It's a title and it's played by different beings in different epochs. Marduk was Ra. Yeah.
Teraz powiem ja. Przed wielkim zlodowaceniem była wielka era tak zwanej Hyperborei.
Before the Ice Age, the great time of the Ice Age, there was a land called Hyperborea.
Nastąpiło to po wielkim ataku meteorytów na północną kulę dzisiejszą.
And it took place after the great impact of the meteorites on the northern part of the hemisphere.
Czy mu coś wiadomo takiego w skrócie, kto to zrobił, że po prostu cały kontynent w tamtych czasach się zapadł?
Do you know of any reason for their continent to get disrupted or to get destroyed at that time?
It wasn't a meteorite.
Yeah.
It was a result of a direct war between the gods and the heirs, who are the teachers for the Rus and Eryan, were fighting against the Koshis, which is reptilian, which became kosher, same name, who were based on one of the 3 moons at the time we had. There was 3 moons. Fata, Layla, I always forget the 3rd, I'll remember in a minute. And they fired, they're using high-tech weaponry. They fired lasers at the moon and it split right across the top on an angle, and the moon fell and hit the northern part and sank. Not Hyperborea, that's the anglicized version. It was called D'Aria, D-A''ARYA, of man. And that was 110,000 years ago.
ponieważ na terenie północnej Polski jest mnóstwo energetycznych artefaktów związanych z tym konfliktem.
In the northern part of Poland, there are a great number of artifacts which are related to exactly this event.
Większe, starsze budowle, wszystkie z tamtą cywilizacją mają związek.
And the larger buildings, they do have a connection with this event.
Na przykład tacy szukający, jak Izabela, jak Franz Zaleski, prawda, udowadniają swoją pracą te artefakty, które są schowane pod polską ziemią.
People like, for example, Izabela Janczarska or
Franz
Zalewski, they confirm with the work of theirs that those artifacts are present and they have a value.
To jest nie tylko artefakt fizyczny, ale przede wszystkim również energetyczny.
The artifact has got a physical nature, but also a energetical nature.
Te wszystkie piramidy, które na terenie dzisiejszej Polski kiedyś były, są zniszczone, ale ślad energetyczny po nich został.
All those pyramids which were located or which were present at the surface in Poland, they are destroyed, but the energetical trail is still present.
I dodam do tego rzecz najważniejszą. To jest tak mocno skrywane. No mów to.
And I would add just one important item. This is hidden so much.
Ludzie są ośmieszani, usuwani fizycznie i po prostu niszczeni psychicznie i psychologicznie, jeżeli mówią na ten temat.
People are being, well, I would say, eliminated, they are distracted, and the work is being dismantled or even, well, destroyed.
I największą taką, w cudzysłowie, negatywną pracę wykonuje właśnie Kościół katolicki, nie?
And the most negative work is conducted by their Catholic Church.
I czy my możemy liczyć na po prostu jakiś impuls, żeby ci, którzy to jeszcze dalej robią, żeby po prostu zaprzestali tego typu kroków przeciwko tym ludziom?
Is there any possibility in your view for those people who are differing or who are influencing or affecting the work of such people like Isabella or Franz, for them to be stopped or blocked? Do you know of anything?
Ponieważ mamy mnóstwo ludzi, którzy o tym mnóstwo wiedzą, ale się po prostu boją o tym mówić.
Because there are really many people who do have the knowledge of those things, of those artifacts, but they are afraid of coming out.
Yes.
I to jest prośba, czy Rada Uniwersum mogłaby jakiś rezonans na tego typu struktury po prostu zablokować.
And the question is there any way to stop and block it? Maybe the Universal Council can impose a certain type of vibration. This is the question.
The council wouldn't interfere with that because they would see it as a human issue. If they are being attacked on a psychic level, the persons can be taught how to defend, so that doesn't take place. Obviously, if it's a physical threat, it becomes a deeper issue. But then there is always ways around it where you appeal to your higher self for the support. Most people won't ask for the support. You have the support, you just have to ask for it. And so suddenly that's why we did the shielding I put the shielding on the website, is you can protect from that field of interference, because that's all it is. They're interfering with your field. Well, if you block and don't consent, because this is our big problem with humanity, we've consented to all kinds that we have no idea what we're dealing with because of the spell and word magic. And, you know, no means yes, yes means no, and people not saying nothing is taken as yes or no, whatever suits them. Well, no, we have to learn to define what we want. You know, people will say, oh, I love this person. Well, how do you know? You're not defining it, what you want out of life. So those people can go into meditation and ask for higher support.
Thank you very much.
Panowie, czy macie jakieś pytania wynikające z naszej rozmowy, bo moja pani na końcu ma pytanie bardziej takie finansowe. Mariuszu, Dariuszu, Józefie.
Macie jakieś pytania jeszcze?
Mamy 20 minut.
Nie, ja nie mam.
I don't want to disrupt it, but I'm just wondering, is the recording still going because we've gone over the 40 minutes?
Yeah, it is. Apparently, yes, it is. It's working.
Okay.
So, funnily enough, but it's sometimes it's working. So to the end, I have a large, maybe not a large, but a heavy question, and it deals with one of the aspects that you mentioned in your last show. It has to do with the National Security Commission on Artificial Intelligence. And you have mentioned the new fourth industrial revolution. And you mentioned also the technological developments on artificial intelligence, on big data, meaning data mining, the fifth generation telecommunication networking, the nano and biotechnology, robotics, and the quantum computing. Could you elaborate on that? I know we have, this is a large subject to discuss, but maybe you could.
Yeah, I could. The best thing for people to do for the broader aspects is the clowns in panic. It's everything that was in that show is now playing out now.
Okay.
It was a warning ahead of time. But the old AI went psychotic.
Okay.
It was ran by the top two parents. And for those who don't know that, the top order of the structure was the Draco, and then there was the parents, the Covens, black magicians, and then the Illuminati, which then became the factions. And it went psychotic. And that's the problem I have with AI, is that it's always corruptible. And sadly, too many, even of the light forces, have been found wanton and corrupted, where they've fallen for the seducement of the dark. And so I don't believe that AI is valuable. Now, it was source created, but it gets corrupted. You know, because if you, AI is just a copying machine. It's like a printer. So you put this piece of paper in, it's going to print out what's on the piece of paper. But then if you're creating parameters on an upbringing planet, which is where the AI is supposed to kick in as a support system, if you're creating environments where it looks like all the inhabitants are savages, when all they're doing is fighting each other because because of scarcity, there's not enough food, not enough land, they just condense everyone. Well, that's not a true representation of that species. When there's an abundance of everything on this planet, and a lot of it is self-regenerating, like oil. It's not finance, it self-regenerates every 10 years. And there's evidence of some of the metals being self-regenerating, so they're not as valuable as they're made out to be. And so AI is placed there for up-and-coming planets, upbringing planets. This is an upbringing planet, but it's too easy, like of what we've seen with Google, as I call them, and Microsoft, to insert software that's going to disrupt the people and the program. So the psychotic AI went down in late November 2015. So this has been the increase of the CIA, NSA, GCHQ, Google, Microsoft, Oracle, to create a new AI that favors them. And the only way they can do that is by mass data mining. And this is why you've seen the rise in technology of all these different apps of where they're asking you questions. Are you more spiritual? Are you more this? Do you like this on Facebook and other social media? And essentially you're filling in your own data mine application. And then you've got the voice technology. They've already got the facial recognition. They've had that for decades. Don't believe that it's new. There's nothing new. So the voice recognition is recording your voice, which then goes into the server, which then goes into your file. And then they have the DNA tests. Come and find out your ancestors. No, they're taking your DNA to add to your data miner file, which they can then create a clone of you with the voice, with all the habits, with all the memories, and so on. So the next stage is the voice to head, which they've had a long time, because that was where the channelers, there's a lot of channeling going on, and it's dear ones, and you know, it was all very patronizing, but that was that technology, and people thought they're talking to source, God, whichever way you want to call it, when it's actually this technology. Mm-hmm. And so this is where we have to be careful of, once you go down that path, they're going to control everything. Mm-hmm. They're not going to need police. They're not going to need military. Why? Because they'll have drones. So you can see how many jobs it's going to take away. Well, if they're going to take away the jobs, then what's going to happen? That people are going to go back to fighting each other over food and money, which is what they want. They want us to eliminate ourselves now. There's just too many, but there's not too many to sustain the planet. You know, they're always talking about overpopulation. That's for their program. It was them that built it up, and now they can't sustain it, and they want to knock it back down. Mm. But so they haven't thought properly.
Mm-hmm. So you're basically saying that the first front people are, for example, the police, then there will be army, and then there will be us. Yeah. In this order.
Yeah, well, the police and the military, they've already talked about, I mentioned this in that show, Clowns in Panic. Yeah. As I gave the warning to the military in a piece 2 years ago, 1 year ago, they're going to replace you. Why would they invest 989 billion a year to keep the US military going when there's nothing to fight anymore? They're not. And that's why they've been building up NATO, which is Rothschild's private army. And then they introduced the Paris Climate Agreement. Initially it was treaty, And then Kim pulled them up on the word treaty, because a treaty can only be done by a sovereign, and none of them are sovereign. That all got stripped away. Only a sovereign can do a treaty. So then it changed to the Paris Climate Accord, not treaty, and then agreement. And most of the countries, including Obama, that signed up for that Paris Climate Agreement, received payments to vote for it. And we have sent Trump the Fulcrum files on who got paid, including Obama. Now, hidden in all the rubbish that they put in these 300,000-page documents, stated for the Paris Climate Agreement is each country would have to hand over their assets to the UN, all of them. And 2% of your GDP would pay for the NATO. That's what's in the Paris Climate Agreement.
Mm. This is the information which is hardly known by people, and you would need to go deep inside their information sources to get this valuable.
A lot of that you have to take it on face value, because a lot of that information you're not going to get on the internet. It's just not there. It's just that we have access to higher intelligence. And even though Kim and I are not together, that's not changed for me.
Okej. Ja wróciłbym jeszcze do sprawy, którą potocznie nazywa się rezonansem Schumana.
I would like to come back to the issue of what we are calling the waves of Schumann's or Schumann waves.
Dziesiątki, nawet setki osób zwracają się do mnie w tej sprawie. Czy mógłbyś coś na ten temat konkretnego powiedzieć, żeby po prostu uspokoić społeczeństwo lub tych, którzy po prostu się tym interesują?
They are a couple to hundreds of people who are trying to connect me and communicate with me on the subject of those Schumann waves, and they are a little bit, how do you call it, maybe not upset, but they are afraid of their influence, of the effect it has on them. Could you please say a few words to that?
Schumann was part of the SS. That's all I'll say. His family line is from the SS. And so can we really trust that information? That's where it can be useful to observe, but not rely on it totally, because that, again, is more lazy man's tech. You know yourself if something feels right or it doesn't. Why do we need their tech? Why are people, it's almost like the horoscopes of people living their lives by the horoscope. But if you set the intention of the horoscope, then that, someone's going to win the lottery, always going to win the lottery on the horoscopes. Well, no, they don't, because not everyone can win the lottery. And so it's something nice to observe, but not absorb, because your real, quote unquote, human resonance is your own internal. You are the frequency, you are the resonance. So you will then know if spirits have lifted or they fell. Everyone can sense it and feel it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Czy któryś z panów ma jeszcze pytanie?
Do you have any questions to Thomas? Darek or Joseph?
Yeah, I have a question. We are a small little group in THI in Poland. what shall we do? What is the most important? Of course, work on us, but what do you expect from your Polish THI group?
I don't expect nothing. Essentially, if everyone fixes themselves, each person that fixes themselves changes the planet.
Good.
And people don't realize, well, how can this, with the limitation programs, tiny me and small me, I'm only one person, but that one person changes the whole planet. If you've gone on a higher frequency, everyone you interact with has changed their frequency. And it's the stone in the pond. It's going to ripple. That's only one stone. But if you throw more stones in, you end up with a tsunami. So it all comes down to you being the best version of you and you attaining the highest soul development, because people don't realize the internal influence is far better than the external. We all look for external gratification, but it's internal where it really counts, because you can create a fake persona, but you can't fake the inside. You can lie to yourself, but it's not really helping you. And so that one person who's lit up their beacon, as I call it, has suddenly changed the whole planet. Why? Because you've changed the algorithms. And those people are then going to interact with other people whose beacons have lit up, who's then going to have a wider influence and a wider influence. So everyone you meet is changing their frequency based on you fixing you.
Mm-hmm.
So you walk through the town centre, you're not realizing the influence that you're having on those people. We don't think about it, but because you're higher vibration, you are changing the frequency of those people just by walking through the shop. So that's how one person can change the whole world. And also, you are disrupting their algorithm, because they only understand ones and zeros.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go outside of that and you go one-on-one with the one,
Mm-hmm.
that's their AI algorithms destroyed.
Okay.
Because they have to have the zero, you see.
Okay, I will add to my question. People are asking me when I'm discussing about those subjects, when we will see some visible changes. I'm not asking about the date, of course.
There's been thousands, there's changes every day. It depends on which change you want. The biggest change is you changing you. You were this person a year ago, you're a completely different person than you are now.
Yes, you're right.
And people don't always recognize it. Cobra keeps talking about the event, and it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Well, we've had 40 major events in the last 8 years. It's already passed. It's already changed. Look at the volume of disclosure we're getting now compared to 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It's already changed.
Yeah, I'm satisfied this answer. Yeah, thank you.
We tend to figure what hasn't happened and forget, or focus on what hasn't happened and not what has. It's like people say, I've lost people, but what have we gained? We don't focus on what we've gained or what we've done. We focus on what we've lost or what hasn't happened. And that's the problem. It's change of mindset. I was helping someone with past life memory, and they were rescuing people on a craft off a dying planet. And they rescued a certain amount, but their heartache was the ones they couldn't collect. There was only one ship. You could only get so many on. And their trauma in this lifetime of remembering it is the ones they lost. And that's a problem with humanity, is we're focusing on what we've lost, not what we've gained. And I said, well, you actually, the biggest aspect is, it's just is a flip of the mindset. Focus on who you saved, because that allowed those people to go on and that species to go on. So it's not what you lost, it's what you saved. And it changed that person's whole mindset. You just do a 180 with it. So what have we gained? Well, we, like I said, in the last 8 years, we've gained an awful lot of disclosure. We've seen these so-called conspiracies all in public view now. There is no conspiracies anymore. It's all out in the public. Yes, there's deeper details has come out. Who'd have thought they'd be talking about crimes of the Vatican Church 8 years ago? Or crimes of governments, or Obama's corrupt, or Hillary's corrupt, Tony Blair, Cheney, Rumsfeld. It's all come out now. And those of us who have been in the alt media a long time, this is absolutely fantastic, because now they're exposing each other, and that's what I warned 2 years ago. They would expose each other and expose themselves, and that's what's happening now. There is no conspiracy anymore. This is our time. It's not their time.
Thank you, Thomas. We are we are now 2 hours over, just slightly over 2 hours now. Do you want to continue? Otherwise, I have to save the file and stop the recording.
If there's one more question, or someone wants to say anything, then we can wrap up after that.
Czy jest ktoś, kto chciałby jeszcze zadać jedno pytanie? Mamy tak czas na jedno pytanie jeszcze dodatkowe. Darek albo Mariusz?
Może ja zapytam.
Dobrze.
Co za zwłoki leżą w grobach w Iraku, w Iranie, które zostały odkryte i podaje się, że są groby Anunnakich? Tam są ciała bardzo długie, 2,70 m, w idealnym stanie zachowane z artefaktami zbliżonymi do tych, które są na piramidach i innych malowidłach czy rzeźbach.
W Iraku, tak?
Tak. Co to są za ciała?
W piramidach, tak?
Nie. I w Iraku odkryto groby.
Groby, okej. In the graves...
W Iranie, przepraszam.
Przepraszam. In the graves in Iran, they have revealed corpse of Anunnakis, and they are preserved perfectly. And the question of Dariusz is, do you know anything about this information?
Well, there's been a number of finds of corpses of different types of species, including the giants, especially in Turkey and Iran. You know, it depends on which epoch of time they've been preserved from. Because Iran was land of the Aryans. That's where the name Iran comes from. And then Genghis Khan, Genghis Cohen, the priest class, who had ransacked Russia in the 1200s, then attacked Iran. And so there was elements of off-world where certain things were crashed at certain wars, and they buried, and they should have come back and removed them. But they always have to tell you, you see, this is how they get around it. They go, look, there's Anunnaki graves, and then they bring in their discrediting agents and go, no, we've fact-checked it, and it's not. But they've actually told you. It's a bit like in 1947, the headline in the newspaper, flying saucer crashes at Roswell. Well, they told you. And then they take it away. No, you take the first, because that's the spell magic.
Mhm.
We told you. It was on the headline of the paper, but you discredited it the next day.
Yeah.
No, but we still told you.
Yeah, exactly. Correct.
Podziękujmy oficjalnie.
So Thomas, I think this is the last question and the last answer for today and for this second interview with you. And we all would like to thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts for your information, for your time, and also for the valuable disclosures that you shared with us. And we are very much in debt to you. And
Thank you.
we wish for more, but I know your time is very precious and you have all different tasks to fulfill and to do. So maybe another time, when you have the time, we will be very, very happy to have you again on the show and on the interview. And for now, we would like to thank you very much and